Welcome to Freddy's Huge Ask Podcast. Huge lives and the stories behind them.
3, 2, 1.
And now here's your host, Freddy Cruz.
Talking about overcoming doubt and living a life with no regrets. It's the author of The Science of Empowerment, Laura Ballet. Hello.
Hello, Freddy.
Hi, thank you for joining the podcast. So I want to begin with you and your brother.
Yeah.
Because this is an interesting dynamic. I love my sister. I love my brother. I couldn't imagine spending all day with them as a career, but you and your brother do this.
Yeah, we get this reaction everywhere we go because we spend time at our summer home where we spend all our holidays together. We work together. We've created together. But it's really a testament to my parents and how they raised us to really have love at the foundation of everything that we do, understanding that challenges are going to come into play. So we don't always, get along and agree, but we have this amazing synergy and we want to empower and help create a better world. So that is what drives us to get along. So we are an authentic example of what the science of empowerment actually is and how it works in our own life.
What was the first instance of either you or him empowering the other and then realizing that there's something there?
Yeah, well, just to keep it transparent, it really was my desire to write. I've been wanting to write since I was a child, and I've been writing, and I had hundreds of journals. I actually had an opportunity to write for Hallmark greeting cards, but I did not follow through with that. And my brother always said, there's a brilliance in you, and it needs to come out. And once he created this formula, I was so inspired by how it really healed and elevated our clientele that I sat down, and 5 years later, The Science of Empowerment was written.
Yeah.
Really his encouragement to tap into my brilliance. And that is not stating from an egoic perspective. It's what you want everyone to do. You want everyone to tap into that amazing potential, and you want the support from the people that matter to you. So it's a real authentic exchange of wanting the very best for one another.
Absolutely. I want to go into the concept of positive thinking. And, there's a stat that I go back to, and it was something that I learned just this past summer while listening to the Art of Impossible audiobook. And that is that 80% of our thoughts are negative, and of that 80%, 95% are repetitive. So our walls as people are already, our backs are against the wall already by default, because, this is just who we are as humans. And those negative thoughts at one point during the beginning of evolution served us, because that's how better avoid that saber-toothed tiger. Right. But in modern society, this is an issue.
Yeah. And I write about this in the book, and I express it as we become these walking algorithms of someone else's input. And it's our parents, it's our siblings, our school, our churches, synagogues, it's politics, it's, the school teachers, it's all of it's the human condition. And we are wired to join the masses. And we do that by the way we think we're thinking about something. And one of the driving forces with the Science of Empowerment was to awaken this realization that we can think about thought very differently than we've been told. And we can think about thought so that we become empowered to dissolve those negative beliefs, those outdated patterns. We actually can become an outlier and create something new, something modern, something much more advancing than what we've been accustomed to. So the positive thinking is really about redesigning the architecture of thought, becoming like an engineer of thought your own thought and the way that you can recalibrate it so that it actually creates positive experiences rather than, as you said, a repeat. And this is all we do, right? Different face, different place, same issue. And I really want to awaken people that it's not supposed to be that way.
Absolutely. And the passage, and I mentioned this before we started the interview, is that I've got specific questions about specific passages, and this kind of goes back to the way we were taught growing up, and really on a broader level, and that's that if I consistently concentrate on other people and focus on what I think is wrong about their choices and their behaviors, I can find fault easily. Therefore, I have no time for my own self
It's
evaluation.
so
And I'm like,
true.
yes, sister. Yes. Oh, yes, queen. Yes, queen.
It's so true. And we're laughing if we don't start crying because we all know what that feels like, whether it's our spouse, our kids, our boss. It's everyone else but us. And this is the beauty of the exploration into becoming an empowered individual when we take accountability for that part of the journey. We then can begin to evolve because it is so darn easy to find fault everywhere else.
Right. And it goes back to the common phrase that you can't control the outcome, but you can control how you react to whatever outcome. And it's a tough pill to swallow because you know what? When things don't go our way, it
It
sucks
does.
some of the
It
times.
does.
It does, because it would just be easier if everybody bent to my will and did what I wanted or didn't do what I didn't want them to do. You know what I mean? It's just so much easier, but there's a lot of growth if you're able to accept that things are not going to go your way. And what if they're not meant to go your way because they're meant to test your resolve and they're meant to make you a stronger individual? So it's up to you, and not you, but well, I mean, us. It's up to us to figure that out, and that's part of the human condition. And you know what? To be honest, I think if everything went my way, life would probably be kind of boring. Like when I play Atari 2600 and level 1 Pac-Man, it's like, how many times do you have to beat level 1 Pac-Man before it starts to get really boring?
I can't believe you're using the analogy of one of those games. I just went through a process with one of my clients about this. That is exactly it. We need contrast. We need the light and the dark, the negative and positive, so that we can see where we are, where we desire to go, and that uncomfortable middle ground of where growth and elevation happens. So we do, we need it. One of the keys is, again, to becoming an empowered individual is to have the skill or the mastery, the discipline to see it coming and be able to get ahead of it, if not full on ahead of it, enough so that the patterns begin to soften and we really create a new way of being and a new way of experiencing everyday life.
So we're at a continuous disadvantage due to our unwillingness to alter the outcome. And that's another one of those passages where I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So let's talk about how specifically, like one or two things, how specifically we can divorce ourselves from the outcome so that when something doesn't go right, we can just, it's what the Navy SEALs say, embrace the suck.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm a big proponent of avoiding the embracing the suck because I've done it enough
Ah,
of my
ah,
life, which is why I wrote the
okay.
book. Because after most of us, and even I have two, young adult daughters, they've already had plenty of that experience already. So I think one of the really unique things for me, and I wrote about this in the book, is really getting ahead of the consequence. What would it be like to master the process of experiences without having to suffer the suck, right? What would that be
Yeah.
like to not have to really consistently throughout our lives be going through this self-induced drama, right? This magnified chaos, finding ourselves in the same argument with the same person, or same argument, different person. What would that be? What would it be like? So for me, one of the ways I find that the science of empowerment, the book itself, is very unique, is it weaves in the principles of the J3 = E formula. And that is, as you stated, unwillingness. How can we recalibrate to a willingness so that we stop existing in that field, in that arena, in the game of suck feelings? And how do we really just experience happiness? And I think there's a time and a place for us to have this contrast. And then there's a time and place for us to really be empowered, happy, creative human beings. And I don't think we need to stay in the negative end of the scale as long as we've convinced ourselves that we need to.
What is the easiest way to ensure we live a life full of regrets? And what is the best way we can avoid that easiest way?
Yeah. Well, regrets, again, that's a powerful word. It's for me, we were raised in a home where regrets really equaled contrast. And even if we came home and we took the car out when we weren't supposed to, or crashed into a stone wall, or did something, my parents always sat us down and always asked, did you learn anything from that experience? And they really empowered us to think about what we did. How did our actions affect our growth process, and how did they affect someone else? So early on, we really learned to be accountable. So I think for other people maybe that weren't exposed to that, a life of regret, all I would say is look at it and find the PowerPoint of the lesson in the regret. So I got married too young, blew all my money, should have, could have, would have. All right, let's look at it for a moment. Let's focus on it for a moment. And what can we extract out of that regret so that it does not happen again? You have learned something of value from that regret. So we'll turn the regret into a recalibration skill.
I want to go to one more very short passage, which I love. I feel like, and now knowing that you could have been a Hallmark card writer, I really love this passage. It's a very short one. Fear has no place within a civilized mind. And I'm like, Are you kidding? There were so many mic drop moments in this book. That was another one.
I would say probably, like you, there's so much wisdom and insight that I drew off of the universal connection that I feel blessed. I really feel it came through, but that came to me one night when I was writing, and that for me says it all. A civilized mind does not connect to fear. It's aware of areas, right, that need more attention to others. But fear, that word, like we don't even use it ever, not in our home, not in our neuromuscular training facility. I have a new acronym for it: forever empowered and resourceful. Always.
I like it.
Always remind yourself how empowered. And for me, when you walk around the world and you see things that you know are not in correct alignment with a civilized society, whether it's our politics, whether it's the homeless cities that are all over, and the drugs and the violence, and I feel like we're in a very uncivilized state of mind right now. We're in the 21st century. We're an amazing country. We have such innovative spirits moving around the world. What has happened that we're still behaving in this manner of such negative output, the way we speak to each other? And that goes for even our leadership. What is happening? So I think if we understood what civilized really meant, and if you look at that word and how it's supposed to elevate from one place to another, so much of what we do is based on fear. And fear does not belong in a civilized mind or a society. A lot of the negativity that we're experiencing is out of fear, personal fear and collective fear. This is why we act out the way we do. We're afraid. We're afraid of, and then fill in the copious amount of reasoning that we're all in fear of things, being alone, being neglected, being an outcast, fear of failure, fear of success, not feeling like we fit in, all of that. I really would like for us to collectively dissolve that word and the energy attached to the word.
It goes back to something that I once heard Robert Greene talk about, is that we're the only species on Earth conscious of our own mortality. So when you talk about fear, it's a fear of insert everything,
Yeah.
a fear of whatever. And it's, well, I wonder how much of what you're talking about with regards to fear goes back to, well, yeah, I'm going to die. And what if I die because of XYZ, or I die in spite of XYZ, or I die with XYZ unfinished business, whether it's actual business or unfinished business in personal life or whatnot.
There's so many leaders and phenomenal like sages and masters in the world that have collectively voiced in one way or another this following story. What happens at the end of our life and we're laying there in our bed and all the ghosts of what could have been and should have been are visiting us, and they're reminding us of what we did not do because we were afraid. And I think that's what I'm trying to express. Go forth even in the face of fear. Create a civilized mind, even though you may feel unprepared. Think and be as if you were this advanced human thinking soul, and just play with it like a game, right? If right now this was a game and we knew there were not any real life consequences, we would be creating the pyramids again. We would be flying to other galaxies. We would be building other worlds and constructing the most amazing visual manifestation of what we think about. Do it. What is stopping us? It's such a short span that we're here. Maybe 100 years, and future generations will start living longer. And maybe there'll be a time when, we're experiencing 500-year lifetimes, but we aren't right now. So why sit in this seat of, oh my God, what if, let it go, just go for it, dream big, goal big, embrace the genius and the brilliance that is within, and really understand, and I don't mean this in a fluff way, we really are made up of elements that create galaxies. We really have coded in our DNA genius, untapped potential. And if anyone is telling you otherwise, then please hear my voice and let me be the reminder. Do not listen to them. There is something in every one of us that is of value and is of importance to add into this global family. Don't wait. And again, move past it. Just blow through that door, regardless of the word fear and the feeling of fear.
I love what you said there, because I think that, okay, well, let me back up. That was not fluff. And I feel like I read something similar to what you said in the book. And it got me thinking, because I'm like, yeah, you know what? Dang it. We are the universe. Yeah. Everything we do is the universe. Like if I would have left home with my daughter to take her to school 15 minutes earlier or 15 minutes later, you're literally affecting countless lives. By you deciding to maybe not go get a cup of coffee in the afternoon, you are literally affecting countless lives. And you don't know what the fallout or what the result of that encounter would have been. And these are trivial examples, right, but they're not trivial to me, because, and it goes back to also something that I had seen Gary Vaynerchuk talk about, where he's like, when I die, I want to know all about, well, I think he says something like, I want to know how many people were at my funeral. And then I want to know like how many times I came close to dying because I went back I went back to go get my keys. I forgot my keys in the house, and I went back, and how many times I almost could have died because of that. And so that's where I'm getting at, is that everything we do has some sort of consequence, good, bad, or neutral.
Right. Many people don't realize, again, that's the first principle in the Jekyll principles, the J, 3 equals E formula. It's awareness. We matter. Even if you don't think you do, every move we make, every thought has an energy, a frequency, a vibration, right? Science speaking, as well as spiritual and consciousness and religion. And it's all there. These stories and this connection, they're all in place to remind us of who we are and why we are here together. However, because we have become such a self-centered thinking world, we've lost that vision of what I say really does affect the whole. What I do affects the collective. And you are absolutely right. There are no coincidences. Forgetting a set of keys, leaving something on the counter, pulling out and stopping because you hear a noise. All these little moments in life are tapping on us because there is already a ripple effect going out. And one of the things I try to do with my clients, and certainly with the book, is express that when you're driving in your car and you left the house and there's anger in you because you got into a fight, or you were disheveled, or you were pressured, kids out, dog out, taking care of the baby, daycare, all of what we have experienced in one way or another. And we bring that energy into the road. We bring that energy into our place of work, in the post office, in the grocery store. We actually vibrate what we're feeling, even if we're totally unaware of it, which is why some of us can look at someone and pick up that they're sad, they're hurt, there's something wrong. And when we start to realize that our energy actually has causation on the collective wellness of the planet, you start to take your thought process, your behavior in the world a bit differently. But it's a discipline, and it's an exploration into mastering that awareness. But it's why we're here. We are not here to live in a state of stagnation or sameness. We are absolutely here to evolve, to thrive, to advance. And we're starting to see it everywhere in the news and programs and in movies, but we really are. And if we can tap into that, it will have a more positive effect on the whole.
The name of the book is The Science of Empowerment. You've got to look her up on YouTube and on LinkedIn. It is by Laura Ballet, and I'm loving everything about this conversation. Thank you so much for coming by the podcast.
Thank you. It was an absolute honor. Thank you so much, Freddie.
Thank you for listening to Freddy's Huge Ask podcast.